Ellis B. Feaster's Radio Aircheck and Classic TV channel.
The weather word for Boston and vicinity tonight, partly cloudy and colder. Lowest temperatures in the lower 30s downtown, the middle 20s inland. Northwest winds 20 to 30 miles an hour. Tomorrow, fair with variable cloudiness. Highest temperatures in the lower 40s. Tomorrow night, fair and cold. Friday, fair, continued cold. The present temperature, 37 degrees. The top story of the hour, the Martin Luther King School has been closed indefinitely. The order was issued this evening by Superintendent of Schools, William Orenberger. And that's the 10 o'clock WBZ report with portions recorded. I'm Streeter Stewart.
Two, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Hello, America. This is Jerry Williams here on WBZ, the Spirit of 103 on the 10 to midnight ride. Tonight we're going to take another look at unidentified flying objects. And I think that it's been long overdue. There have been programs, many of them, and I've done many of them, into the world of UFOs, but not recently. People have been overlooking the whole matter of UFOs, and it kind of runs in spurts, it flows and ebbs. So tonight, here on America's largest town meeting of the year, you're going to meet three people who have to do with UFOs, and we'll introduce them to you. We'll pass along their comments, and then we'll ask you to make yours at 254-5678 here on the Jerry Williams Show. So stay with us. I think it'll prove interesting, and if you'd like to challenge any of the people who are with us or ask any curious questions relative to what they have to say, fine. First, I'd like to introduce to you Dennis and Peg Lewis from Davie, Florida. Dennis is employed as a caretaker and maintenance director of the Hadley Groves in Davie, Florida. Dennis, nice to have you up here.
Thank you, Jerry.
And Peg is working at a local market, a quick check market in Davie, Florida. You're married?
To
right.
Dennis, of course.
Right, and how long have you been married?
About 8 years.
8 years,
yeah.
all right.
8 years this December.
Okay, we both talking to the microphones, please?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Both of these people, Dennis and Peg Lewis, claim that they were taken for a ride on an unidentified flying object or a spacecraft of some kind. Is that right, Dennis?
Yes, sir. That's very true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When did that happen?
That was on July 24th, 1965.
1965.
Yes, sir.
Peg, you were aboard?
I was with him, that's right.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now we've met these two people. I'd like to also have you meet somebody who's going to sit across the table and ask them pertinent questions, Dr. Klaus Von Menday. Dr. Von Menday is the director of astropsychology at the University of Berlin, and we're delighted to have him with us and lucky to have him because he is on a lecture tour here in the United States. And if it wasn't for that, of course, we wouldn't be able to have him here. Dr. Von Menday, nice to have you here.
Nice to be here.
Can you tell me a little more about your own background and why you're interested in this whole business of astropsychology? What is astropsychology?
Basically, Mr. Williams, astropsychology is a conglomeration of two fields, astronomy and psychology. And what this means is simply that psychology these days is playing an increasing role in UFOs. What this means is this. Today, the problems of astropsychology deal with the effects of a rapid increase in scientific technology on the human mind. What we want to ask is all of the UFO reportings, are they all verified? What is fact, what is fiction, what has been created in the human imagination?
So actually you're in the science of trying to detect whether or not these sightings or these alleged rides in UFOs are factual, scientifically factual.
That is precise. I am currently going around the country talking with organizations like NICAP and APRO, discussing with them their cases of reported UFO findings.
Okay, well, Dr. Von Menday will be asking some pertinent questions of Dennis and Peg Lewis of Davie, Florida, who claim that in 1965 they took a ride. And that ride was on an unidentified flying object. Dennis, maybe you can give us some indication of what that was all about. What are the spacecraft? Dr. Von Menday, you can butt in any time you want to ask any pertinent questions. Dennis, what did this craft look like?
Well, I was out. I make a nightly run about 11:30 every night to check on the groves and make sure I'm the caretaker there, and I have to make a nightly run. And Peg and I, on the night of July 24th, had run out on this run and had come over a bluff, which is out in the uncultivated part of the groves. Now, as we were in the truck, and now as we approached these groves, this uncultivated part, we noticed a red glow or smoke.
It was like a
mist.
gas.
Oh, gas, yeah. It was a glowing thing. And it was a peculiar smell in the air. It was about like burning metal.
Yeah.
Now, you can only drive the truck so far, about 200 yards up this path, and then it turns into a footpath because Mr. Hadley has not cultivated this area yet. So we got out of the truck and walked the rest of the way through the fence and then proceeded up along this bluff. Now, there's a drop from the bluff of about 20 feet. Now, when we reached this bluff, this red gas, had permeated all the way up to the road, which we'd first noticed it. Now, when we reached the bluff, we looked down into the pit and saw a tremendous object. There's a pond down there that's about, I suppose, about 60 feet
60
long.
feet, yeah, that's right.
Well,
we
now,
used to go swimming in there when we were
right,
kids.
there was this tremendous glowing object. It was a bright blue, and like I said,
It was almost blue-white.
Blue-white, right.
Very difficult to look at because it was so bright. But we could see around it, the area had been burned around the, and the shape of the thing.
Might I?
Dr. Von Menday, yes.
Yes, I just have one question here at the outset. This particular area that you are talking about, there are trees in this area, yes?
Well, not exactly trees. It's like I said, uncultivated grove,
it's
which
thick
means
brush.
Telephone poles then?
No,
Some type of
there's
pole
no
object
communication,
of which
no.
the moon could, there is nothing.
absolutely no
As a matter of
poles out
fact,
there.
as a matter of fact, Doctor, there was no moon that night. The reason I remember,
There's no moon. I
because-
make a note of that.
yeah,
No moon.
the reason I remember is because I usually make my rounds with Dennis, at 11:30, and it was such a beautiful night, but there was no moon. It was very dark.
Continue.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we saw this object, and like Peg said, it was so bright that you could not really tell the exact shape of the thing, but it was huge. I'd estimate, about 40
No, I think
feet
we
in
said-
diameter?
We said 40, 50 feet.
Yeah,
we
about
thought.
40, 50
48
feet.
or 50 feet,
40, 50.
or
40.
it is the diameter of the object.
Right.
40 or 50.
And it was
48 or 50 feet?
40,
That's
50.
what 40
feet.
40 feet.
It was
not 40
diff-
feet,
the only
'cause-
reason you could tell is because it was glowing so big, and some of that could have been, the light that was being
Were either one
given
of you
off.
drinking at the time?
Oh,
You
no.
I
said?
was going to
Absolutely.
ask that
No.
question.
Absolutely not, sir. I've held my
No, he's
job.
not allowed
I've
to
held
do
my
that.
job there since we were married.
Did you drink at all, Dennis?
Oh yes, sir. Occasionally, but not on the job, sir. I mean, this is a part of my job.
Peg, do you drink?
No, we
Well,
have
people
to.
would ask you that, so I ask you that
Well,
question.
social that's about it.
Yeah.
But we were waiting. He never drinks till
Well,
after the rounds
I
are
didn't
over.
ask you to alienate you. I just
No.
asked you simply because somebody would say later on they must have been drunk.
No, they
I let you cool.
they tested us. Believe me, they thought didn't they think we were drunk?
That's
Dennis?
right.
At the hospital, they thought we were drunk.
But anyway, so we'd seen this thing, this blue-white object glowing. Now immediately, you can imagine how frightened we were, but I still wanted to get a closer look at it. It was so bright that we could not tell the shape. It did seem to be long or almost a cigar-shaped thing.
Cigar-shaped.
Right.
I make a
Sort
note
of,
that.
if you put like two teacup saucers, one on top of the other, but backwards, it'd be sort of that would be the shape of it.
That's
Two
about,
teacups on top.
not the
No,
cups, the
saucer.
saucers.
Oh,
The
saucers.
Saucers,
Okay,
yeah.
naturally.
Right.
Saucers,
Yeah,
sure.
Use terminology.
Yeah.
But we had come back and wanted to get a better look at it. Now there's a fork in this road that runs off to the right, and we decided we'd get a better look.
Because
Now,
you can go around, instead of going, the bluff is a 20-foot drop, so you can go around by going up the right part of the road, around it, and come look from behind the pond, which is what we started to do.
yeah, that's right. And we had gone down this fork of the road. Now the brush out here is so thick, it's tremendously thick. It's
Yeah.
full of sawgrass and palmetto plants.
Excuse me, about how high is the brush in
It's-
relation to the ground area?
Well, let's see. Now I'm about 6 feet, and it's not quite as tall as I am. It's about 5'9", I suppose. That'd be about
5'9",
it.
well, that's
I
possible.
mean, that's the tallest growth around there anywhere. So we'd come back there, and now we'd gone about 60 yards up the path.
Yeah.
And we heard a noise off to our left in this brush, like somebody walking through the brush.
But
Now-
it wasn't coming from the same part as the thing that we saw.
right.
This was sort of behind.
It was away from
behind
it.
us,
Mhm.
yeah.
And so immediately, to walk through that brush is a feat in itself. I mean, that's really thick brush. These trails have been
And
chopped
Dennis
out.
knows that area too, because he didn't take a flashlight that night.
That's
He
right.
knows that area because we
Yeah.
used to go in this.
There
cave.
was one in the truck.
May I just ask, what
Certainly.
was the source of light? How could you walk along without any light?
Well, now, in a dark area as it is,
No, there was no moon, you said.
There was no moon, but
no.
the stars, and I mean, just the night itself.
But it was,
isn't that dark.
it was a footpath because people who walked it. We could never take a truck through. Yeah, because the truck path stops after you get in. I think about 20 yards.
Now, let me break for just a moment, and we'll return to our guests, Dennis and Peg Lewis of Davie, Florida, who claim they've been on a UFO, and Dr. Klaus Von Menday, who is director of Astropsychology, University of Berlin. Well, this Friday it happens all over again. Jack and Marion's reopens at Coolidge Corner in Brookline. The reopening is going to be a grand one, and everything's been entirely remodeled and redecorated except the food. The food remains the same. The waitresses, the cooks, and the bakers have had a rest, so the service is going to be great. So come to that grand reopening at Jack and Marion's, one of the great restaurants in the world. Luscious snacks, full-course dinners, steak, seafood, roast beef, brisket, corned beef, a tremendous selection of freshly baked pies and cakes, cream cakes and parfaits, the finest wines and beverages prepared with a master's touch. We reopen Jack and Marion's, Coolidge Corner, Brookline, Friday. So take a tip. Come. They're open till 3 in the morning from early in the morning. Things will be swinging again at Jack and Marion's. Friday, we reopen. Come indulge. Sink your choppers into a pastrami covered with chopped liver. Throw a little coleslaw with a little hot mustard on sisal. If you got some potato salad, we'll stick a potato salad in there with a slice of onion. And we got that whole thing, and we'll go raving mad with this food. Now let's return to our guests, Dr. Klaus Von Menday and Dennis and Peg Lewis. Dr. Von Menday, any questions about the story so far?
Yes, well, let's just recap. You have said so far that you saw an object of what you believe to be burning metal. There was a red gas given off by this object. It was 40 to 50 feet in diameter. It was a cigar shape. And it was taking place in a brush that was possibly 5 foot 9 inch tall, right?
That's right. Now, of course, there's a little pond around there where the thing was sitting on the edge of the pond now, so that the brush isn't really.
You also have to remember
it
was burned around there too, because we couldn't see, we couldn't make out distinctly the shape of the thing, but we could see the brush had been burned around.
May I just ask this question here? Is there an airport landing field near where you live?
As a matter of fact, yes, there is.
The reason I ask this, Mr. Williams, is because very often UFO spottings have been the result of landing lights on airplanes, and this has often been the case when people have thought they have seen objects.
Excuse me, but this was absolutely no landing light. I've never seen a landing light that's 40 feet in diameter, sir. But to continue, to get along with this, we'd gone around, and when we heard this noise in the brush, well, this was enough to turn us back. I decided to go on back to the truck and go back and get Mr. Hadley at least. Now, when we turned around, about 20 yards or 30 yards behind us, right in the middle of the path down which we'd come just several minutes before, were two objects. They were I guess cone-shaped. They were sort of topped. Pointed at the top, and they were about, I'd say, about 8 feet tall.
8 or 9 feet tall, two of them.
Yeah.
Cone-shaped?
Yeah, they were pointed. No.
It was a cylinder,
like a cylinder with a point at the top.
On top.
Cone-shaped.
And this was just enough.
I passed out.
Peg, then when we saw these things. Now they weren't surprising enough. They weren't glowing or anything. It was just like I said. It was dark, but like a white object, like the road itself, the white sand. There's a lot of sand in the soil there, and therefore they were like white in dark, which means you could see them, but not really clearly. But I mean, you could tell the shape of them. Now, they were about, like I said, 20, 30 yards from us.
Yeah, no, we were going back to the fork in the road, but this thing had sort of, must have come up upon us, because this was before we'd gone back to the fork in the road.
That's right.
Now, exactly when did you pass out?
As soon as you saw him, I think.
Well,
you passed out?
Well, she did. She did.
How about you?
Well, I've heard
I
the
don't remember what happened
I've
then.
heard the expression being so scared you couldn't move, and I never really believed it until then. I was so terrified, sir. I mean, you cannot believe. I was just shivering with fear.
You could not move.
I absolutely could not move. I was so scared.
Yeah,
We will find later, Mr. Williams. This is an important fact in this particular
Professor
story.
Von Menday, the important thing is, Dennis has been making these rounds now ever since we were married in 1960, and so he's accustomed to going out alone and, like, there are animals out there and stuff, but this was like nothing he'd ever seen before.
Well, I'm sure there are things that
And
you have
anyway-
not seen before, that when you do see them, you are frightened.
Right. Well, so now, right here, I did black out. I don't actually remember when exactly I did black out, or anything, but all I know is that I saw Peg lying down and tried to help her, and then all of a sudden, just everything just went blank.
Were you wearing a watch at the time?
Yes, sir, I was.
Do you happen to remember what time it was?
Now, I
approximately?
remember. I always leave. I check the time when I left Mr. Hadley's, which was 11:30.
Yeah, 'cause he always
exactly.
checks out
I always
for- he
leave.
goes and-
check
yeah.
out exactly 11:30 to make the run.
Right.
The thing is that the next thing I know is that we woke up. I woke up first, and we were by water, and this was by the jetties, by the rocks, near. It was about 15 miles.
That's right.
And
yeah, about
the thing is,
15.
I woke up and my arms were burning, and my face too. My hair was singed on my arms because my first impression was I had to get cool, and this was a warm night. You know, it was in July after
Were you
all.
smoking at the time?
No.
No.
You were not smoking. So
I
this-
just, I had just, I just recovered. I passed out.
We were-
But we woke up, and I was in a strange place. It was not the brush that we had left, and so we went into the water to get cool because everything was so hot. And I remember seeing my hair was singed,
If any
on my
people-
arms.
If anybody is familiar with the Fort Lauderdale area, Miami area, it was right by the jetties on the beach by Port Everglades, which is right at the south
It's
end
where-
of
I'm
the
not
beach.
familiar.
It's where the
Yeah,
couples go to
anyway,
neck in the summertime.
Well, that's
Yeah.
important. Dennis
No,
and Peg Lewis, it is important.
Actually, it is but we were found by two young kids that were out there, happened to be out there that time. of night.
Teenagers? Young-
Yeah, they were
young
young
children?
kids. Yeah.
They corroborated the story, I take it.
Well, yes, they,
Well,
they were the ones who
found
called
us.
the
They
hospital.
found, yeah, they
Teenagers,
took us to the
I see.
hospital over there.
I just want to reintroduce what's going on here on the Spirit of 103 WBZ Radio. I'm Jerry Williams, and Dennis and Peg Lewis from Davie, Florida with us. Dennis is employed as a caretaker maintenance director at Hadley Groves in Davie, and Peg is a worker at one of the local quick check markets. Dr. Klaus Von Menday is director of astropsychology at the University of Berlin on a lecture tour in the United States. We're trying to find out more about UFOs as a result of their experience. When did you actually take this ride? Let's get to this ride.
Well, now this is, now when you said a ride, well, we had said that this was mainly a conclusion that had been reached after we got to the hospital. We did not remember, there was no...
Oh, there was a whole blackout.
There
there.
was a
That's what
blackout.
I was trying to
Yes,
point
sir,
out.
there was a
Very
blackout.
rarely is any documentation.
But, doctor, the
I mean,
important
you
thing is
don't
the
even
time.
know you were on a ride.
Well, no,
Well,
yes, we
let
know
Dennis
we were
explain.
somewhere...
Bring something back, a souvenir or something like...
No, sir, we certainly
ray
didn't.
gun?
Except,
Ray gun?
well, sir, if we did bring back one thing, and that is radiation burns, and also the fact that since that day, my wife and I both have been sterile and cannot have any children.
No, we've tried.
I'm
God
sorry
knows.
to hear that.
Yes, well, so are we, sir. And now, what happened?
didn't know.
was
I'm
the
sorry.
the teenagers, these two teenagers, found us. We were delirious. I very vaguely remember being found and in the water. On the beach, washing myself with water. Then they took us to the hospital. They went up to the Clipper, which is a hotel on the beach.
A Clipper Hotel.
Yes, and called the hospital.
Which
And
hospital was this, please?
Broward General Hospital. It's in
Broward?
Broward.
Broward.
Broward. yes, sir.
Broward.
And it's in Fort Lauderdale.
Is this a good hospital?
It's a very good hospital, yes, sir. It's the best one in Broward County.
In Broward County,
Yes.
isn't it? I see. Best
And
hospital in Broward County.
and so
Well, they
our check-in time, our arrival time, they put down as 12:05, which right there, sir,
How many hours is that then?
No, you
Well,
see,
that's
it
missing?
wasn't. The time that we lost was after we left the house. We checked out for
11:30.
for 11:30, and all this thing happened in like 35 minutes. And the thing was that when they found us, we were some 15 miles from the bush, and it was impossible to get there. See, we had left the truck, don't forget, parked before the fork in the road, and they had not been moved.
Right.
And it was impossible for us to get that far, that fast on foot, and we're in no condition to walk, certainly.
So at the hospital, now we were taken to
You had radiation burns?
Radiation
Radiation
burns, yes,
burns.
sir. Predominantly on our hands and our faces and the part of the uncovered parts of
Yeah.
our body.
Yeah.
And although we had
May I
burns.
interject?
Yes, Dr. Von
Radiation
Menday,
burns
yes.
are not a phenomenon that is peculiar. Radiation burns can be acquired from many assorted things.
Well,
Daily
yes, sir, but
job.
not out in
to the
Hadley
extent
Grove,
that would
sir.
make me sterile.
Well, I'm sorry about this. I know that, but I do think that I wish you had some evidence of the radiation burns.
Well-
I don't see any scars.
Well, yes.
If-
Well, my hands, sir, you can see there, right there on my hands.
Oh.
But
I don't see it.
So-
What
well,
is
you
it?
can see
It's right
the
there. It looks like
difference
it
in
burns
skin,
inside.
in skin
it's
texture
a little
there.
darker color there.
I see.
Yeah, now, the fact is that we were taken to the hospital, we didn't remember anything. There was one we vaguely under examination, we came out vaguely remembering. I remember waking up, well, not waking up, more like a dream, waking up in sort of a cylindrical room. It was round,
Very white, very bright.
very bright, same bright blue color as the outside of the ship, or the object that we saw, and something whirling above our heads, like
It's like mirror. Well,
mirrors or some kind of metal that. The only thing I thought was the top of a granary. If anybody's ever seen.
Have you ever seen any space movies?
Well, yes, when I was a boy.
One of those things is James Bond.
Spy movies?
Yeah, they seem to sound like some of the things you're talking about.
no, see, the thing, Mr. Williams, the thing was, when we got to the hospital, they put us in separate rooms. They put us in different wards, and they had us under surveillance. There had been checks. They had heard that night at the Fort Lauderdale airport over 50 sightings of UFOs, which is not strange for that area. Now, the thing was that of course, when they heard our story, they thought we were nuts, right? People have called us crackpots, ever since it happened. And we were under psychiatric care. We were in that hospital for 2 weeks. And the thing was that this impression that Dennis had, that I also had, being in the white room with the revolving mirrors, we both had this, and without knowing
you were
each other.
in separate rooms.
That's right.
Now, you could have talked that over afterward.
We weren't together for long.
What I'm saying is you could have talked it over. One could have influenced the other and said, yes, well,
Mr. Williams, I still have this recurring dream.
Well, now,
Our recurring dream?
yeah,
That's
now,
right.
the whole thing now was, like I say, it was not a concrete experience. I can't remember any clear designs, but I do remember that
May I just ask a
Yes,
question
certainly.
here? I don't mean to interrupt, but there are elements of this story that I find, hard to believe. Have you
You're not the
conferred?
first,
Have you
Dr. Von
conferred
Menday.
with Project Ozma in this country? That's
I
called
don't even know what that
OZMA.
is.
You
No,
don't
I
know
don't believe
Project
we've been-
Ozma.
Is that the one in
Very
Puerto
basically,
Rico?
Mr.
What
Williams,
project is that?
Project Ozma is something set up by the United States Air Force to study communication between the planet Earth and other planets. Now, they have received beeps from other planets. They're not sure whether these are actual beeps, transmissions from other planets, or whether they are ricochets from the United States or other countries sending these beams back. Now, in a situation like this where you have obviously had communication with alien beings, I am surprised that you did not report this. to
Well,
the
now we
proper
did. So
authorities.
we were interviewed by.
But you did not go to Project Ozma, is this correct?
No, but we were interviewed by Captain Ward Brissick
Of
of
Na-
Homestead
Captain
Air
Ward
Force Base.
Brissick.
Yeah,
Homestead Air Force Base
and
in-
also-
in Miami, Florida.
How long has he been a captain?
I have no idea.
Why would you? Who is this captain?
Well, now, when we arrived at the hospital,
Yeah, well, who is the captain? I do want
Captain Ward Brissick.
Yeah.
Captain Ward Brissick.
Yes, well, who is he? What is
So
his?
he's an official at the
I see. And he's the
Homestead Air
only
Force.
official you ever talked to about this?
Oh no,
Oh, no,
absolutely not,
no,
sir.
that was just the start.
We've been interviewed by countless numbers.
Yeah.
We've been to Washington.
You've talked to
DC.
NICAP and
The thing-
APRO?
you see,
NICAP
the thing was
headquarters in
that
Washington D.C.
About 2 weeks after, I said we'd been in the hospital for 2 weeks, and then afterwards we were flown down to NICAP headquarters in Washington. And
No, they're a bunch,
maybe
some
they
people
don't know
think they're a
what
bunch of
NICAP
nuts
is.
too.
NICAP
yeah.
is the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena, and as a matter of fact, we now
Well, a lot
received
of
their
people think they're a
publication.
bunch
If
of
you-
nuts too.
Well, yes, sir, but
I don't think nuts is quite the
Mr.
word.
Williams, how do you explain the fact that they're constantly confirmed with the Air Force then?
They are not constantly confirmed with
But-
the Air Force. Do
Major-
you know of Project Blue Book at all? Do you know
Yes,
of
now
Yes,
that,
we know
that-
about that.
I don't know
It's
for
a
sure.
top secret thing.
Now,
I'm surprised you know about
Captain
it.
Brissick did mention.
Captain
some-
Brissick. Is he affiliated with...
No, he's Ward Brissick. He was the captain from Homestead Air Force
Homestead,
Base on
who
the
investigated this in conjunction with the
A lot of
sightings.
people think they're a bunch of nuts, NICAP.
Well, that's NICAP, but now not the Air Force. I don't. I've heard a couple of people say they're a bunch of nuts.
I don't
too,
think
but
we
not-
have to go into that.
I think it's a matter of
As a matter of
opinion.
fact, I've heard Major Kehoe been called a nut many
Well,
occasions.
yes, sir. Now I've never met him, sir, but we did meet Mr. Charles Olivier.
Olivia, he's
who's-
professor of astronomy, University of Pennsylvania. He interviewed us at NICAP in Washington.
That's right. That was in.
Well,
that-
I'm going to interrupt for a moment and reintroduce our guests in a moment. If you just tuned our way, stay by. The Spirit of 103 WBZ Radio. Well, to some people, a cookie is nothing much to talk about, just something to nibble on. But to the connoisseur who appreciates the finer things in life, there is a cookie made in Denmark that is the finest of its kind. In Denmark, the Kjelsens family follow an old-time recipe, using only 100% high-score Danish butter, which is just about the best anywhere in whole country fresh eggs. Now, the Danes don't go in for substitutes, especially in their foods. Kjelsens butter cookies have been popular in Denmark for years, and now they're shipped to 60 different countries all over the world. So if there's something special you're looking for, look for Kjelsens Danish butter cookies in the blue tins. keep one on your pantry shelf just for the family and take along another as a sure-to-be welcome gift. It's spelled K-J-E-L-D-S-E-N-S, Kieltzins. That's the way you pronounce it, the way the Danes do. Kieltzins, the best butter cookies you've tasted in a long, long time. Available wherever fine foods are sold. 10:30 on the Spirit of New England, WBZ, and WBZ-FM Group W Westinghouse Broadcasting in Boston.
All over Boston, sounds are in the air. Now, WBZ tests your ability to identify them.
If you can identify the secret sound of 103,
A sound actually recorded somewhere in the Boston area.
you may win.
Now, listen closely to the sound of 103.
All right, if you want to participate, it's simple enough. Write to the sounds of 103, WBZ Boston 02134, and get in on the fun, okay? Now let's return to our guests, Dennis and Peg Lewis of Davie, Florida, who have claimed that they have taken off in a UFO. You've heard this story up to this point. We're going to finish the story, and we also have with us tonight, we're lucky to have Dr. Klaus Von Menday, Director of Astropsychology, University of Berlin. He just happens to be in Boston on a lecture tour in the United States, and we're delighted to have him here to ask these skeptical questions. Now, what happened from that point?
Well, now I'd like to finish the story, sir, about what these dreams that, well, not dreams or visions that we did have.
Impressions that we had.
Impressions.
They're impressions.
Right. Now, I mean, I don't say, like I said, we didn't become fully awake. I do have recollections of waking up in this, like I said, this cylindrical room with these blue-white lights glaring at us. Now,
We also
Peg
had
was
this
on-
I had the sensation that we were floating, sort of suspended, but not on anything, just sort of floating.
Yeah, the air inside this thing seemed to be very dense, and there was a tremendous humming. Well, I mean, not really loud, but more, I guess the word is intense, because I remember trying to
We
talk
tried to talk to
Peg,
each other, that's right.
trying to talk to Peg, and no matter how close I got to her ears or how loud I yelled, we couldn't make ourselves understood. Now, once again, there was a blackout after this experience. There was these rotating mirrors above us, or some
There
kind
was
of metal.
also, Dennis, there was something on the wall that, it was like a sign. It was the only thing from the impression that I have that wasn't like part of the surrounding area. It was like a writing or a picture or something, but we didn't know what that was.
Yeah,
It
now,
was on the
I
wall.
did not remember that. That Peg remembered that. I do not remember seeing the mark on the wall. Now, Peg and I have discussed this, and this was the only difference when they did talk to us under hypnosis, and just we took lie detector tests and everything. This was
Yeah.
the only discrepancy that they did find, and we're not out for publicity in this. As a matter of fact,
No,
we've taken
Lord
a lot
knows
of
we
trouble
don't.
for it.
Yeah.
And but this is our story.
Well,
and-
you expect people to swallow all that stuff?
Mr.
Yes, sir,
Williams, we said that we would be glad to undergo any test they wanted to give us, that sodium pentothal and the polygraph test,
yeah.
and everything that we said came out as the truth. Even under the influence of this drug that they injected into me, I said the same things.
And
We had intense psychiatric care for 2 weeks. The thing that the hospital report said, that we were under extreme mental exhaustion, more than anything else. I think more than the burns that we had in our body, more than the stench of the radiation, was this mental exhaustion that we had suffered.
Are you done with the story?
well, let me only add that unfortunately nothing more came out under hypnosis, as I understand.
Yeah, but I understand that you're receiving, now I hate to be skeptical about this, but that you're receiving money for your appearances around television and radio, and that, yes, you
we
have
signed
not the only
you
one.
have written some articles in newspapers
Well, now,
about this
we have
for
not-
money. And
Not
No,
for
sir.
money, not
Yes,
for money.
for money.
Only for expenses. Only for expenses,
And what
Mr.
it
Williams.
any money that we have incurred by talking to people, by writing, we've turned into NICAPs. They can investigate things like this to find it, because Dennis we're sane people, and this also, the thing is, the governor, Hayden Burns, who was governor at that time, also had cited a lot of unidentified flying objects, and Nathan Sharon, who was chief of police of Florida State Police that we talked to, also had been with the governor.
Well, I certainly wouldn't trust the Florida State Police as far as I could throw
Well,
them.
Well, so that's
May
your
I just-
decision.
Well, I mean, I've been caught down there.
Well, we were.
I don't want to get involved with that, but
Mr. Williams, we're God-fearing citizens.
Our
May I
story
just
was
make a comment here?
Yes, certainly, sir.
I have listened to your story, and I would like to say, before I make any remark about the story, that I do not disavow any truth in UFO findings. I think there's a very real possibility of life on other planets, and I think there's a very real possibility of them trying to communicate with this planet. I would like to say that from your story, this is an obvious case of astropsychosis. Now, what does this mean? Well,
That's a good
simply,
question, sir.
simply astropsychosis is something that has been induced by the mind to make you believe that you are actually in the spacecraft. Mr. Williams, the human mind is its own universe. There is no limit to which the dream world can stretch man to the links of infinity. Now,
But
let me
Doctor,
just a moment, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you recall, if you have read in this subject extensively, you know that very often UFO findings have become meteors, they have become birds, they have become things thrown up in the air for a prank. Now then, what I would like to know is, how do you really feel now that you have undergone this shock? And it must have been a shock because you said you were rendered paralyzed. How do you feel now? Do you feel any different? Do you feel as though you have perhaps gained some enlightenment? Many people feel that after an experience like this, they are almost beings themselves.
Like taking a trip, if
I
you'll
know,
excuse the
Dennis-
expression.
Exactly.
Dennis,
Yes, sir. Well, it wasn't quite the same.
no, I don't think so.
Not a trip, huh?
I do know that Dennis
No.
finishes his rounds
like
earlier
taking
than
a trip.
usual.
We do not suggest that you
Yeah.
were taking drugs.
Well,
I would like to say this.
No, they tested us for that, Doctor.
I
They
don't
didn't believe us.
think, sir, that this could possibly have been shock. I don't think shock could have moved us from the Grove, sir, all the way to Fort Lauderdale
It was
Beach in a
15
period
miles,
of
yeah.
what couldn't have been more
No,
than
that
15
is-
minutes.
I find, Dr. Von Menday, that scientists are always very skeptical, particularly German scientists.
Well, Mr.
German
Williams-
scientists, excuse me just a minute, German scientists are always very clever, always seeking out, always trying to attempt to destroy. I get that feeling particularly about German scientists, that they're always skeptical. They never give credit to people. These people obviously are sincere in what they are saying. I couldn't imagine why somebody employed as a caretaker in some orange groves down in Florida would want to tell this story unless it actually happened or they think that it happened. And scientists are always very picky. They never believe anything and they can see. And particularly German scientists. Do you find that so of German scientists?
Well, Mr. Williams, we've come up against this, ever since. it
German
happened.
scientists are.
May I just say something here in my own defense? I think that that's true. I think that German scientists are, as a rule, more skeptical, more inquiring.
Yeah, but during World War II, the German scientists were led over toward the other side, and they of all people who were dedicated to science, they prostituted science.
I don't
and
like
they
that word.
Yes, they did. They joined hands with Adolf Hitler.
Well,
They joined
some of them did, yes.
Yes,
That-
all of them.
No, not all of them, Mr. Williams.
And some of them are still doing it over in Egypt, as a matter of fact.
in Egypt, in South
And in Egypt, that's what they're doing.
Well, now, I sincerely, I don't really know much about
No.
this. I'd like to get back to...
I'd like
know
to-
what
I don't
Dr.
care
I'd
to
like
be
to
called a
challenge
Nazi
you.
on this program.
Dr. Von
Mende.
I'd like to ask
Von
you,
Mende.
Dr. Von Menday, I'd like to
I'm
ask
going
you a
to have another
question.
cigarette.
I'd like to ask you a question.
I'm sorry.
Ever since
I
this
want to find
happened,
out, you didn't give the Dr. Von Menday a chance to answer the business about this German scientist thing. I mean it. I think there's a defensiveness about you, Dr. Von Menday, and that all German scientists seem to be hung up on that sort of
It is
thing.
true that
I'm serious.
German scientists
because,
are skeptical, especially those that have been to the United States and seen some of the wild things that go on in this country.
Dr. Von Menday, Werner von Braun, he said that there also are unidentified flying objects. I mean,
Dr. Von
and he's
Braun
one
is
of your
not a
people.
German, he's American.
Well, I don't
No,
have
he
any
was a German.
prejudices
He was with that
against.
crowd.
I don't have any prejudices against
Oh,
alien people. That's all.
Well, now, I
Well,
really...
that is true. Do you feel those German scientists working in Egypt to blow up Israel are dedicated scientists?
Well, I would like to say that I am a member of the Social Democratic Party in Germany. I am not affiliated with the Nazis.
I heard that in the 40s,
They
too. I heard a lot of
represent
people say that.
20% of the population in Germany. And I am not a part of this. I am skeptical because we have before us not
I
a
heard that
case of
song.
technology, but a case of psychology.
Dr. Von
A
None
case
of the-
where the
none of
mind
the-
has induced...
None of the German people say anything these days. They're all saying we didn't know anything about
I'd like
that.
to ask the
I'd
doctor
like
a
to ask him
question.
about
Yeah. Doctor, ever since this happened to me, we belong to the First Methodist Church down in Davie. It's Reverend Stovall is the head of it. And ever since this happened, I've been going to church a lot more. Do you believe in God, Doctor?
Oh, why are we getting
Just
into
a
that?
minute. Mr. Williams.
Yeah.
Because I'm a God-fearing woman.
I am
and
a
I wouldn't.
scientist. I believe in forces
Don't
that
you think
control
that
the
God
universe.
could have sent these flying saucers down here on Earth?
Well, now, Peg,
Just
now,
the way he sent them to Lot at Sodom and Gomorrah?
Now-
yes,
now, wait
that
a
is in the
minute.
Old
Now,
Testament.
I'm going to have to
and
interrupt
in
right
Genesis,
here. Excuse me. We'll be back. We'll let these folks cool off for a minute. Dennis and Peg Lewis of Davie, Florida, and Dr. Klaus Von Menday here on WBZ, The Spirit of 103. Jerry Williams here. We'll be back in a moment with more of your comments, your views, and opinions at 254-5678. Now let's return to Dennis and Peg Lewis of Davie, Florida, who claim they were on a flying saucer or an unidentified flying object, and Dr. Klaus Von Menday, Director of Astropsychology at the University of Berlin, who's on a lecture tour in the United States. You were about to say about this business, what was
I have
I
something.
had
Yeah,
asked
Dr. Von
them-
Menday first.
I'm sorry.
I have sufficiently cooled off, I hope. I just have a few comments talking about the state of mind that induces this psychological phenomenon of UFO. It is simply this, that in these days, modern man, because of technology, is confronted with this problem. For him, the universe is getting smaller and larger at the same time. It is getting larger because recent developments in technology have improved the telescope so that we know that we are not just one solar system, that we are billions of solar systems, that the universe itself is infinite. So man is confronted with the psychological and the philosophical question of how do I span to the depths of infinity. At the same time, we have things in this country, like the Apollo 7, like space flights which predict a man on the moon by 1970. So what man has to do is he has to overcome his basic fear of the unknown, infinity, and venture forth into the universe to take his stand on planets. Now, how does he react? Well, it's a very unsettling position. Man does not exactly know how to cope with something as vast as the universe. So,
He can't even pick up the garbage here in Boston.
exactly. The ultimate result is, in many cases, paranoia. What happens is a man who has been induced by various radio programs, and I don't mean this one, I mean advertisements and books, like the books I have here, Identified Flying Saucers Here and Now. These are sensational tracks designed to make man think that alien beings are living next door to him.
Well, now-
If this happens, it is normal that somebody, when he sees something that he does not understand, be it a meteor, be it a bird, be it an actual flying saucer, he cannot rationally interpret exactly what this is, and he goes into a state of shock when anything can happen. And Mr. Williams, states of shock have been known to produce far more fantastic effects than the ones that have been described here this evening.
Well,
that's all I have.
I've never heard of shock producing radiation burns, nor have I heard
sterility, doctor.
or being sterile. And
Do you know what psychosomatic means? Do you know that the brain can perform acts on the body which are normally not believed so?
But Dr. Von Menday, I just graduated high school, and that's all Dennis did. Now, we don't know much about psychology. The
I
only
intend
thing,
to tell you.
Well, so we wouldn't know about these things. Why should we want to do it to ourselves? First of all, we've only come into this, into the realm of unidentified flying objects ever since this happened to us.
You
in
had no
July.
idea what an
That's it.
UFO was before.
well,
We'd
of
heard
course,
about it,
we
but
heard
have
of
you ever
flying
been to the
saucers.
movies?
Of course.
Yes.
But now, I don't see that. The fact is, Doctor, and this has been substantiated by a great many. Our story has been documented in the files of NICAP.
I
We
can
are
tell you the
included
books
in a
that
book.
we're, yeah.
I have
What a
the
bunch
books
of
right
nuts.
here.
Uninvited
That's a
visitors.
bunch of nuts.
Well, the book of flying saucers that was written by the UPI editors.
May I just quote you an example, please?
NICAP people
I'm
are
reading
nuts.
now.
Every time I hear about
Exactly.
NICAP, I think
I'm reading right now from the world of flying
Nuts
saucers
investigating.
by Donald H. Menzel and Lyle G. Boyd. I think that name.
yeah, Donald Menzel thinks everybody's
Yes,
phony.
can you see all this? I'm holding it up. I don't. Well, anyway, I have an example in here which took place 50 years ago. 50 years ago, before the unidentified flying objects thing became such a fad.
Before we go on to that example from Professor Menzel, whom I've spoken to on many occasions, we'll return to our guests in a moment on WBZ, The Spirit of New England, The Spirit of 103. Now we're off to do some food shopping at Roxy's Great Meat Market in Quincy and Roxy's Great Discount Supermarket in Stoughton. They are the greatest, and if you haven't shopped this week, don't. Roxy's does sell prime and choice meats. Underline prime and choice meats, because many supermarkets, for some strange and odd reason, don't even get involved. People don't want the best. We offer you the best. I mean the best. And let me give you an indication of what goes. Center-cut pork chops this week at Roxy's at $69 a pound. Swift's premium bacon at 66 cents a pound. Chicken wings at $29 a pound. Pork loin rib end at $39 a pound. Pork loin, let's see what that is. It's another end for 49 cents a pound. From the produce department, yellow ripe bananas at 10 cents a pound, or a big 10-pound bag of potatoes at 48 cents a pound. Come to Roxy's. The greatest supermarkets are there for you to enjoy. And meats, prime and choice meats. Now, Roxy's in Quincy across from the police station on the Southern Artery. Roxy's in Stoughton is on Route 138, a few blocks from Stoughton Center, and a few miles off the Blue Hill exit of 128. They'll give you the best, they save you money, and Roxy's gives you prime and choice meats. Now let's return to our guest, Dennis and Peg Lewis of Davie, Florida, and the doctor from the University of Berlin, Dr. Klaus Von Menday. He wanted to make some statement about Donald Menday. What is his name?
Klaus Von Menday.
No.
Oh, yes. Well, I have a book by Donald Menzel here.
Donald Menzel,
called
right.
The World of Flying
He's
Saucers.
from Harvard.
Yes. Well, in any event,
I think they're a bunch of nuts over there.
this example deals with the problem
Would not.
very much like your own. This occurred on February 3rd, 1907, over 50 years ago. In Norfolk, England, a young man and his son were walking home along a dark, unmarked path, much the same way.
Sounds like yours. Sounds
Yes.
like them.
When they noticed a brightly glowing object that was flittering
Sounds
around in
exactly
the sky,
right, yeah.
something they could not explain, they were terrified.
Looked like gas.
It looked like gas. It looked like some type of emitting light which they could not understand, an alien light.
Was
Excuse
it
me,
saucer, cylindrical like a cigar?
Actually, it did not
Sounds
have a
just
shape
like
of
it,
a
yeah.
small globular. But anyway,
How large was this?
this was
object?
about the size of, well, what do we have? Well, it was not 40 or 50 feet in diameter. It was about the size of, I'd say, a large dog, I would say. Anyway, what happened is, through frequent observation, it was discovered that this UFO was not an alien planet or an alien spaceship. It was an owl. It was an owl, Mr. Lewis.
Well, that's
a
very
luminous
nice,
owl
sir,
of
but-
the
Wow.
Strix Flamia variety.
Now let
Which-
NICAP look into that.
Well, now that's very
And do you
nice.
know how it got this luminous quality? By rolling around in fungus, which is common to that area. Isn't that amazing?
that's- yeah, that's-
Now, there
that's
are
very
other
nice.
stories besides this. Ones that it's cut.
That's very nice.
Dr.
but now-
Von Menday.
Will you sit, Mr. Lewis, just sit down, please.
I do have the
Dennis,
facts
Dennis.
here. I would like to
Dr.
get the
Von
facts
Menday.
out on the table.
But
I'd like
Dr.
to ask
Menzel.
Dr. Von Menday.
Please.
Menday, I'm sorry.
Dr. Von
Menda,
Menday.
please.
I want to ask,
Enough
are
to
you
come to this
familiar with Betty and Barney Hill?
Betty and Barney
Oh,
Hill.
do we have to
Yeah.
go into that story?
I-
We know that
I
story.
really am not concerned with
No,
that.
we're
I'm
not.
not- I'm not-
this is
Everybody
Are they happily
knows
married?
that story.
I would like to ask you something about our own personal experience, sir. Now, this is all very nice, but it seems that your story, the
What's
the
it?
parallel ends. The story of the owl ends with the dark road and the luminous object. Unfortunately, I have not seen an owl. I've seen plenty, sir, and I've never seen one 40 feet in diameter. And the fact is that we ended up 15 or 20 miles from our original
How
spot
do you
within 10 or
explain
15
that?
minutes.
How do you
Now,
explain that?
explain that, please.
Before this hour is completed, I want to get some calls.
I would like
so
to
we'll
entertain
continue
some
this.
calls
Our
myself.
phone number, by the way, is
Yes, I'm getting
254-5678, 254-5678. For either one of the gentlemen or ladies who are
Do
here.
we use these?
Huh? Yes, use
Yeah,
those
microphones.
earphones. Right. All right, we'll take the first call. Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. My name is Ralph Scuppers.
Ralph Scuppers?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I've had some dealings with UFOs in the past. I was stationed down at Dimmock Air Force Base in Texas, and they have a big program on unidentified flying objects down there, and they play a very close game of ball with NICAP and APRO and all of those other people. I was a technical sergeant for them, and I got to know quite a bit about this. Now, it turns out that the Air Force, although it doesn't release a lot of this information, has a pretty good idea of what the basic flying saucer looks like. And this is not a matter of any owls with fungus or anything. They know pretty much what one looks like, and when they get a report, they can be pretty sure of how to categorize this. Now, it's not a matter of fiction. It's not, as Dr. I didn't catch the name.
Von Menday.
Von Menday. It's not a figment of anybody's
You
imagination.
don't have to shout
I'm
back.
sorry, I was excited.
Yeah. Now, I think that your skepticism is unwarranted, Dr. Von Menday.
Mr. Scuppers, is that your name?
Yes.
Scuppers?
Yes.
I'm sure that from your position as a technical sergeant, you do have a very good knowledge of what a flying saucer is supposed to look like, much the same way NACAP believes they know, and APRO believes they know.
Well, we do know.
Well, Mr. Scuppers, may I just make this comment? There is no such thing as a basic flying saucer, because there is no such thing as a flying saucer. Have you ever considered the question why it is a flying saucer? Why is it not a flying dish, or a flying cup, or a flying toaster, or something like that?
Well, now, excuse me, Doctor, but I'm afraid that I'm going to have to disagree.
He's making light of the situation.
I don't know, but
How
you
about
see,
a flying owl?
well,
Yeah,
now,
flying owl.
Well, now, you seem to have a
about the flying nun?
prejudged. Excuse me, Doctor, but you seem to have a prejudged version. I mean, or you want to refute everything that we've said or that anybody says. I mean, I think that the one thing you could at least do for us and for all these people that call in is at least maintain an open mind about these things. I mean, you're out to ridicule, sir. I mean, I've met with plenty of ridicule before.
I am out to deal with sickness.
Well, that's very nice that you classified everything like that. But, sir, I would like to thank you for calling in and at least maintaining an open mind about this.
Mr. Scuppers?
Yes.
Are you still there?
Yes.
Can we finish our discussion, please?
Yes. Now,
Continue.
you mentioned Operation Blue Book.
I was
Operation Blue
going
Book.
to talk about that just now.
Well, I'm
This is a
talking
very
about it now.
important project, and it is the one which is really the spearhead of all the research on these UFOs. Now, it so happens that I was right next door to the office that was doing all the copy setting for the Bulletin of Unidentified Flying Objects, the BUFO. That comes as
Pardon me?
The BUFO.
Bufo.
You should read that if you haven't already.
That's an American word I don't know. What? Bufo?
The Bulletin on Unidentified Flying
Oh, it's another one of your abbreviations. I see there. All right.
Please.
Please.
Yes. And this comes out every year, and I think that if you haven't read this, and you obviously haven't, then you're in no position to talk.
And he obviously hasn't, Mr. Scuppers, because we were written up in the Project Blue Book by Major Hector Quintanilla, was the one that interviewed us.
I know. I remember when this incident happened, and
Thank you, Mr.
it was
Scuppers.
very well substantiated.
Mr. Scuppers?
Yes.
I have read literature extensively on this subject. I perhaps have not read Bufo, as you call it, but I do have before me Robert Lofton's book on identified flying saucers. I do have this Menzel book, and I have read extensively in these other programs that Operation Blue Book has put out.
Well,
Operation Blue Book has decided that it is unnecessary and absolutely dangerous to release unwanted information to the American public about UFOs because it can cause what I call mass-induced astropsychosis. This
That's
is exactly what happened in 1952 when an atmospheric condition led the American people to believe that they were being invaded. I use that word invaded because that's what they thought they were.
I don't think you're pro-American at all, Dr.
No, this is...
I don't have-
Dr. Von Menday gives me the impression of being anti-American, and I think maybe... Well, anyway, I appreciate your call, Mr. Scupper. We got to get on one. Next one at 254-5678. Hello?
Hello?
Yes?
Jerry?
Yes?
Hi. I'd like to ask Mr. and Mrs. Lewis a question.
Well, go right ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I've been listening very carefully to all that you've been saying, and, well, anyhow, my question is, what do you think is the purpose of your ride in this spaceship? I mean, like, were you, like, perhaps when you were unconscious and you were taking this ride, like, do you think they tried to subconsciously give you some sort of message to Earth? I mean, do you think... were you chosen, or do you think it was just circumstance that you were on that spaceship?
Can I ask this?
Sure, honey, go ahead.
Well, I feel that we, in a way, we were chosen. I know since this happened to me, I've become a much more religious person. I'm attending church much more regularly. And I feel that what this means is that we were to be told that there were things beyond our understanding, that we were on Earth.
Everything can be written off like that, as being beyond your understanding. A guy talks into a microphone, he's heard in 38 states, and that's beyond my understanding.
That's exactly
No,
like
but
that.
that we
there are
should
other
stop-
people who understand it.
Mr. Williams, I think it means that we should stop experimenting with what we don't know. And how do we,
Oh, I don't think that could be
Oh,
true.
they got all
that's
these
terrible.
Bible quoters who do
Exactly.
things like that.
No, I
and
mean,
they,
I think, don't you think it's conceivable, like, that, if this is all important and you're on radio telling people about this, I think there must be really some important, really important message, not just, let's not believe in something, blah, blah, blah. You know.
Well, ma'am, I tell you, I don't believe that it was planned. I don't really think if they
Not
had
really
wanted
planned,
to.
Well, you mean you weren't chosen at all? It could have been like 2 5-year-old
wife was
kids,
chosen.
or
Miss,
No, I don't think.
excuse me,
Hmm?
Miss, this is Dr. Von Menday.
Hi.
Do you yourself believe in these flying saucers?
Well, yeah. You know, like I would believe in just about anything I was convinced about.
Well,
you know, like I
you're
haven't
You're very
seen.
gullible then.
Have you been
Well,
convinced?
no. I don't think I'd call myself
Right.
gullible by any
Gullibles,
means.
you might go off on a trip and they call it Gullible's Travels.
I knew I might have come
Very
along with
clever,
that.
huh?
Very funny, very
Right.
funny.
Well, we have another call coming, so I've got to get off to that. And,
Well, okay.
Thank you
thanks
for
very
calling.
much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
254-567. We'll take our next call in a moment on WBZ, the Spirit of New England.
Let's all get over to Sears. You can't do better than Sears. Sears is where the values are. Let's all go shopping at Sears.
Don't miss this one. It's Sears Giant 16.6 cubic foot all frostless refrigerator freezer for only $258. Now, but only through Saturday night. Just $258 buy Sears luxurious 2-door refrigerator freezer that never needs defrosting in refrigerator or freezer sections. It has a huge 136-pound freezer capacity, a porcelain finish interior, and twin porcelain crispers. Sale must end Saturday night, so buy it now. Sears Giant 16.6 cubic foot all frostless refrigerator freezer for only $258. No money down at Sears Roebuck & Company. No payments till next February the 1st.
Open nights till 10.
3 minutes to 11, we'll take our next call before the news, and then we'll return with Peg and Dennis Lewis of Davie, Florida, and Dr. Klaus Von Menday. Hello.
Hello, Jerry.
Yes.
This is Mrs. Ralph Pearson of Hingham,
Yes.
and I'd like to talk to the couple.
Yes. Hurry up because we're running out of time.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Mrs. Pearson, go ahead.
I'd like to know, did you see any people on the saucer?
No, ma'am. Well, not really. Now, the two objects, there has been some theory that the two objects that we saw when we turned around might have been beings or some inhabitants of the saucer. I wouldn't say so. I don't know. When we woke up or we had this dream or whatever it was or what we remember as being inside some structure, we saw no beings. All we saw was this room and this light and this whirling mirrors. That's all we remember seeing.
Yeah, it could be that the two cylinders could have been, the form in which they took, and we don't know because we had no talk with them at all.
Well, do you have any idea what this is doing? I mean, people might be listening to this show and thinking that, this thing really goes on.
Mrs. Pearson, it's a truth.
It actually did.
Mrs. Pearson?
We were examined by top psychologists, psychiatrists. We were talked to by the Air Force, by NICAP, by
A bunch
APRO.
of nuts at NICAP.
Now, Mr. Williams.
Miss Pearson?
Is this the doctor?
This is Dr. Von Menday.
Hi, doctor.
Hi, how are you? I would like to say that I think you are catching on to this absolute psychosis that these two people are suffering from.
I think
This is a
they're not.
Please
psychological
don't hit the
I'm getting
table.
very upset,
Mr. Millions,
Mr.
I
Williams.
resent
Don't
that.
hit the table.
I'm sorry.
I resent that the doctor can make a statement like that. I mean,
I
it's
think
a
more and
blanket
more that
statement.
I'm representing
Listen,
reason.
don't
Dennis,
hit
have you
the
got my
table.
pills? Have you got my pills?
I know,
NICAP,
honey,
a
I
bunch of
don't.
nuts.
You don't have pills, honey.
Well, Mrs.
You
Pearson,
know what I think?
What?
I think they're commies.
They're
I
what?
think they're a bunch
Commies?
of commies.
Now,
Well, I
look
don't
here.
think
Well, I don't know about
We're
Dr.
Democrats. We're not commies.
Democrats in
That's
Florida,
right.
in northern Florida? Wallace
No, this is in
Democrats?
southern
No,
Florida.
Probably
Southern
Wallace
Florida.
Democrats,
No,
right?
no.
I don't see where that has anything to do at all.
Well, is
sir,
that
with
your
what-
politics? You're for Wallace?
Well, now, sir, I don't feel
Our
where that
political
has
views have nothing to do with the
any
subject.
bearing at all on what.
Well,
on
he
this
said he was a
experience.
social democrat over here. I asked him if he was, part of that
but
whole
that's something different.
that whole
I-
scientific community that
Sir, I come-
opted out during World War
We
II.
believe in each man
Hello,
in his
Mrs.
place
Pearson?
and a place for each
Yeah.
man.
Well,
Are you
that's
still
what I
there?
feel about it.
I'm sorry?
Are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Sorry about
German
that.
on one side is very skeptical and cops out, and the other people are probably Wallace.
I am not copying out to you, Mrs. Pearson, or anybody else.
Had to pay their expenses here. I want you to know that. We had to pay their expenses. $300.
Mrs. Pearson, may I ask you this?
Certainly.
Is your reaction to this story perhaps one of disbelief and fright at the same time?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, well-
This can be induced panic. This happened in 1952 all over this nation.
I know.
And I think
Well, listen, I don't want anybody going to panic. You included, Mrs. What's your name?
Pearson.
Mrs. Hingham?
Pearson.
Mrs.
Pearson
Hingham.
from
Mrs.
Hingham.
Pearson. Well, would you stand by for about 5 more minutes?
Yeah.
Not you, the people here.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
We're going to take a break for 5 minutes. Dr. Menday, Von Menday.
Thank you.
Honey, where's my tranquilizer?
No, well, don't take it. Well, hold on here. Will you? That's not fair to give
Doctor,
people.
I don't agree at all with what you said.
WBZ, we'll be back in 5.
Voice of New England, WBZ, AM and FM. Group W Westinghouse Broadcasting in Boston.
It's 35 degrees in Boston. Tonight's low will be in the 20s. I'm Streeter Stewart reporting the 11 o'clock WBZ News. Superintendent of Schools William Orenberger has closed the Martin Luther King School in Roxbury indefinitely. He said he was acting at the request of the King-Timothy Coalition, a neighborhood organization, and the Boston Teachers Union. Orenberger said it was in the best interests of restoring a workable and healthy educational situation at the school. In New York City, councilmen and labor leaders have entered the strike of public school teachers there, and there's a strong possibility that the state legislature may be called on to intervene in the closing of the city's schools. Negro students at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst have withdrawn their ultimatum that campus police be disarmed by Friday, but they say they will not compromise on demands that the guns be removed eventually. Tomorrow, the students and the administration will discuss 21 demands made by the black students after an alleged beating on the campus last week. The NAACP has created a full-scale legal department, and WBZ newsman Bill Slater says the Boston branch legal department will deal with racial discrimination exclusively.
Attorney Henry F. Owens III, now an assistant district attorney for Middlesex County, will head the new department. He says he intends to make use of established attorneys in the area and of third-year law students. Owens, who is a 1967 graduate of Suffolk Law School, says the department will deal only with cases of alleged racial discrimination. And he says the department will be at the disposal of other civil rights organizations.
This committee is not exclusively NAACP. There have been letters sent out to various black organizations in the Boston area stating that maybe we can use this legal committee as a unifying factor, in fact, to unite all the black organizations, that if in fact they have a legal problem which falls within the domain of our committee, that we'll be more than glad to help them with this problem, and maybe we can even, our services are available to any organization which in fact has a problem along these lines.
The new department is the first full-time legal department to be organized by a civil rights group in the Boston area. Bill Slater, WBZ News.
Subway, trolley, and bus rides in the Boston area will cost 5 to 10 cents more starting next year. The MBTA has voted to hike transit fares to control its spiraling deficit. But a group of young people, members of Students for a Democratic Society, would not let the MBTA's board of directors announce the rise in fares without a struggle. Their shouts drowned out the vote of approval.
Stop the fare hike, tax the rich! 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 Stop the fare hike.
And thus it continued. SDS spokesman Emily Perkins explained what the cries were all about.
I feel that the deficit should be met by taxes on profits of very large corporations, and by ending the debt which is paid to the banks, which the banks are making a great deal of profit from, not from a fare hike. It should come from the rich and not from the people.
Emily Perkins speaking for Boston students who are protesting the MBTA's fare increase. A 5-man court-martial at Fort Devens has found Private First Class Raymond Kroll guilty of being absent without leave. He was sentenced to 3 months at hard labor. He had sought sanctuary at Marsh Chapel of Boston University before being taken into custody. The Massachusetts Bay United Fund Drive has just ended with a victory dinner this evening, and the fund's radio television chairman, Jeff Stanwood, thanks the public who made it possible.
The campaign has gone over the top, raising the largest amount of money in the fund's history. The total is $14,002,034, or 100.001% of our $14 million goal. On behalf of all those who will benefit most from the 340 United Fund agencies during the coming year, General Chairman Ephraim Catlin and I join in thanking every one of you in our community for your generous support. Thanks a million, or perhaps I should say, thanks 14 million.
That was the Massachusetts Bay United Fund radio television chairman, Jeff Stanwood. In sports, Derek Sanderson's unassisted goal gave the Boston Bruins a come-from-behind 1-1 tie with the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight in Toronto. Former heavyweight champion Rocky Marciano said today the death of his trainer, Charlie Goldman, came as a sad blow. Marciano, who spent his youth in Brockton, will be unable to attend Goldman's funeral tomorrow because of a commitment to participate in a testimonial for Ezard Charles in Chicago. And Roy Campanella and Dr. Tenley Albright, two internationally famed athletes who know what it is to battle against crippling physical ailments, were among a host of sports personalities honored at the opening event of the Easter Seal Society's four-day national convention in Boston. The weather word for Boston and vicinity for the rest of the night: partly cloudy, low temperatures in the low 30s downtown, the 20s in the suburbs, northwest winds 25 to 30 miles an hour. Tomorrow fair with high temperatures in the low 40s. Northwest winds 20 to 30 miles an hour and gusty. Present temperature 35 degrees. The top story of the hour: School Superintendent William Orenberger has ordered the Martin Luther King School closed indefinitely. He said he was acting at the request of the King-Timothy Coalition and the Boston Teachers Union. And that's the 11 o'clock WBZ report with portions recorded. I'm Streeter Stewart. We now present The People Speak, a sampling of audience response to our station's editorials. And now here's our general manager, Mr. Jim Lightfoot.
We continue to hear from people in response to our editorials about citizens' involvement in the urban crisis. One such letter suggested a promising idea for student involvement in the area of housing, a critical problem for the city, landlords, and students themselves. The letter came from Mrs. Cricket Smith, a resident of Dorchester and a graduate student in landscape architecture at the University of Massachusetts. She's a member of Student Housing Group, which is just getting organized in the Boston area. And here's how she explains its role and its purpose.
Student Housing Group is a nonprofit association of graduate students and professionals in the field of environmental studies. Our basic plan is to provide low-cost housing to interested students in return for simple maintenance and renovation. We have several goals for ourselves and the community. The first, though, is to offer responsible students safe, convenient, low-cost housing near urban renewal sites and in other older areas of the city which are showing signs of physical decay. Students agree to do necessary minor repairs on their own apartments and other work around the buildings, subject to agreement with the property owners. For this work, students get a cut in the normal rents or an allowance for materials. Students who participate in this plan can avoid the usual overpriced student ghettos and at the same time make a contribution to the city's welfare. Landlords benefit by having their property maintained or even professionally improved without any labor cost.
If you're a student or a landlord and you're interested in this plan, drop a letter to our editorial department. We'll forward it on to Mrs. Smith. And, of course, we'd welcome a letter from you on any of our other editorial topics, too.
You've heard WBZ General Manager Jim Lightfoot with The People Speak, a sampling of audience response to our station's editorials.
Hello, America, and welcome back. Part 2 of the 10 to Midnight Ride. I'm Jerry Williams here on the Spirit of 103, WBZ Radio. Our guest tonight, in case you tuned in late, Dennis and Peg Lewis of Davie, Florida, who claim they've been taken for a ride on a UFO. Dennis is employed as a caretaker and maintenance director of Hadley Groves in Davie, Florida, and Peg is a worker at a local quick check market in that area. Also with us tonight, who is on a lecture tour in the United States, Dr. Klaus Von Menday, Doctor of Astropsychology at the University of Berlin. Now we're going to let your questions and comments fly in at 254-5678. Fly in. 254-5678, area code 617. Hello?
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Yes, concerning your conversation tonight about UFOs.
Yes.
Yes. I have a question to ask.
Yes.
Is this a put-on?
Is what a put-on?
This entire program.
What gives you that impression?
Well, I don't know. It seems to me that it sounds like something that would be done by the Proposition or one of those satirical groups.
Well, I don't know what gives you that impression. These are real people from Davie, Florida.
Well, I don't know. It seems to me you've done programs with the Proposition in the past, and I seem to recognize some of the voices. And for your information, the FCC takes a rather dim view of willfully perpetrating a hoax on an audience.
Mm-hmm. Who are you?
Who am I?
Yeah.
My name is David Post.
David Post.
P-O-S-T.
What, are you getting vicious, David?
No, sir.
Yeah? starting to get vicious.
No.
Starting to find a little bit of hatred down below the surface.
Mr. Williams.
No, just let me talk to David for just a moment, all right? What is it, David? What irks you tonight? I mean, you have a problem?
No, I just really think that this whole program is a put-on.
Well, maybe it is a put-on.
Okay.
Do you think it's a put-on?
I still do.
Well, what angers you about it? What puts you uptight if it is a put-on?
Nothing does, except the fact that I think, how stupid do you think your audience is that they will fall for, a group such as the Proposition over and over again?
Oh, you don't like the Proposition. Is that the idea?
I am a fan of theirs, but how many times do you think you can get away with perpetrating on your audience, a story, be it on whatever subject you can name, such
May I
as...
ask a question?
Yes, Dr. Von.
What is the proposition?
This gentleman, we had a satirical group here on the air one night who we had some fun with, and they actually did a satire.
On flying saucers?
No, it was not on flying saucers. Trying to think of what we did. I can't even remember. What was it on?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, no, I'm asking David.
I don't know myself.
Well, then how did you know we did it?
Well, I remember because it was exposed near the end of the program.
Oh, I see, yeah. I remember doing it, but I don't remember what the subject was.
Yes.
Oh, on ESP, on ESP, right?
Right.
An extrasensory perception.
Extrasensory perception,
Right, which just goes
exactly.
to show you how my sensory perception is tonight, not very good. But you don't seem to have, David, any sense of humor at all. You seem to be very uptight.
Well, I don't mean to be. I'm not used to talking on the radio.
Yeah, well, everybody has to talk somewhere. You did make the call.
Yes,
You didn't
sir.
want to talk on the air, right?
Right.
Yeah. What are you mad at?
Well, I'm mad at not you personally, but simply the idea that you would put on a group such as the Proposition.
I thought you said you were fans of the Proposition. Dr. Von Menday, excuse
I
me.
am not here to
Yeah, all
perpetrate
right.
a hoax. I would like to make that comment.
All right, did you hear that?
I did not, sir.
Did you want to speak to Mr.
I would just like to say that I am not here to perpetrate a hoax. I have a rather busy schedule, and I am not here to play games on the air or any place.
All right. Then why are you?
Why am I on the air?
Yes.
I am on the air to discuss astropsychology and the recent developments of UFOs.
Yeah, and you certainly don't seem to care a lot about what we have to say, sir, which is something that's really been sort of bothering me.
This is a hoax that is being perpetrated on the air.
It certainly is not, sir. We've taken a great deal of abuse from people such as you,
Just like, yeah.
and a great deal, doctor. If I have nothing really more to say to you. You seem to have come on here with a prejudged view of everything and just wanting to put forth your own views.
Well, I think if Mr. Post has an argument against this program, it is you two, because you have perpetrated this ridiculous story about being in a flying
Dr.
saucer.
Von Menday, there's a simple way he can find out whether this is truthful or not. Have him look up in the phone book Dr. Cynthia Latham. And this is the woman that's been working with us from NACAP. She'd been associated with Columbia University in New York, now living in Boston. And let him check and call back.
Yes, what was that name again?
Cynthia Latham.
Cynthia
Would you
Latham.
spell the last name
Yes,
for me?
Latham.
Latham.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. 254-5678, our number. Hello.
Hi.
Yes.
I'm an MIT student. My name is Robert Price.
Yes.
And
What do you study?
Huh?
What do you study?
Physics.
All right.
I wanted to comment on your comment on German scientists. You said that, during World War II, that all German scientists.
Good many of them, is what I said.
Yes. all right,
Opted
a good
out.
many of them.
They opt out. They collapsed.
Right. Okay. But I think you should realize that you probably owe your life, along with a great many other American people, to some German scientists, because Dr. Hahn and Dr. Mettner, who discovered artificial nuclear fission, the process by which the A-bomb works, could have given the atomic bomb to the Germans much sooner than the United States had it, and the United States would have lost the war. I think it's important.
Yeah, that doesn't excuse the German scientific community during World War II for opting out. The great numbers of them becoming part and parcel of a totalitarian system that scientifically took apart 10 million people.
Dr. Von Menday, who were you working for at that time? That's one question I'd like to ask you.
I would like to refer Mr. Williams and all other skeptical listeners to Germans Against Hitler, a book that has been put out some years ago about the German movement against Hitler during the Second World War. I think you are aware of it, young man. You seem to have brought up the points that all German scientists are not Nazis, that they do not believe in totalitarian government, and some of them can be very close to human beings. I thank you for that.
Well, what I wanted to point out was that you can't put all scientists in a group any more than you can put any other type of people in a group.
Well, I don't know about that.
You have, well, all right. Can I say that all radio announcers are, I don't know, nuts?
Well, they are. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Listen,
Okay,
what is your first name?
What?
What is your first name?
Robert.
Robert. And you're you study physics at MIT?
Right.
Do you think you're fairly smart?
Reasonably.
Yeah, what grades do you get, or what half of the class are you in?
Well, now, really,
I have a B
Well, I'm just
plus
asking him, that's all. What was that?
A B plus average.
B plus, that's pretty good at MIT, isn't it?
Robert?
You think you're pretty smart, huh?
Well, I don't know. It depends on who I'm comparing myself to.
Well, could you be taken in, do you think?
Under some situations, yeah.
Well, what's your first name?
My first name?
First name, yes.
Robert.
Robert, you've been taken in.
Yeah, I know. You just asked me that before, but
No, you have been taken in.
in what way?
The whole thing tonight was a complete fraud and a hoax and a put-on.
Well, that's nice.
Everything.
I was wondering because it didn't seem to be. Well, I wasn't wondering that it was a hoax. My wife mentioned that, but
Yeah, your wife said so? Well, you see,
she
that guy before you named Post, he was so mean, I didn't want to tell him that he was right. So I figured that you're a nice guy, and you're playing the game with us. I would tell you because you're a nicer guy.
What's all this about a hoax? What is
I don't like you, Doctor. I haven't liked you since the first time I saw you. What's that armband you got on?
Actually, these people are from the Proposition in Cambridge. It's a theatrical group, and you ought to know them because they're nearby Cambridge.
Oh, yes, I've heard of it.
And they...
second-rate outfit.
Once you haven't been there, they'll get you.
And the whole story, actually, you want to tell them how the story came about?
Well, very much of it is true. Like all the names and places.
What
are
is your
true.
name, anyway?
What's my name? Elena Warren is my name.
Elena Warren.
Right.
Elena played the part of Peg Lewis.
That's right.
From Davie, Florida, who goes to a Methodist church. And
That's right, Reverend Stovall. But
Yeah.
much of the information, well, all the information, the names, the places are all true. Many of the incidents are true and happened to Dick Bowling, who played my husband.
It was a hoax that was played on me. in
But
Fort
it made
Lauderdale.
all the wire services, and they were investigated by NICAP and the Air Force.
Well, listen, I thought Robert and Dr. Von Menday, what is your name, Dr. Von
Fred
Menday?
Grandy.
Fred Grandy. That if I were listening to this show on Long John's program 10 years ago, that I would have thought, well, I couldn't believe it, but the people who were on were dead serious about it. And I thought that these people sounded to me tonight, Robert, even though I'm a participant, dead serious. Didn't you?
It sounded that way. I read the article in Life magazine that it sounded very similar to what these people were talking about.
Well, you've been taken in, and so you now have a B- average. In perception, you haven't gotten a very good mark. But it's good. Thank you for helping us, too. All
right.
Bye-bye. 11:18 on WBZ. We'll return to the Proposition in a moment. Stand by at 254-5678. David Post. Spoiler.